I've given everybody a wooden frame that you will cover with Mod Podge to give it a tacky surface that the polymer clay can stick to. But that can be done later. Today what you're doing is practicing on your little glass votive I gave you. This is where you'll put all your practice pieces and turn that in on Seesaw to show me that you've done the work. It's just a small glass jar. Some people like to put a layer of Elmer's glue over it to give it a little bit stronger surface, but I usually just work right on the glass. Piece of paper towel and a Ziploc bag of which you will then take rubbing alcohol and you will soak the towel with it and store it in the plastic bag. The purpose of the plastic bag is to keep the rubbing alcohol from evaporating, and the purpose of the rubbing alcohol on the cloth is to have a cleaner that you can use to clean the polymer clay off your hands. Polymer clay is made out of PVC, which is polyfluoride. I have given every black block and half of a red block to do the practice pieces with. Polymer clay actually was discovered by a chemist many years ago, back in the 70s, who was trying to make PVC for the pipes. You know how you have your pipes underneath your kitchen sinks and bathroom sinks? The material didn't really work for him, so he brought it home, and then his wife, who was an artist, decided to play with it and figure out what she could do with it. Polymer clay is very malleable when it is unfired or unbaked. It's got an oil base to it, so you can't mix it with water. The oil base and the fact that you can't mix it with water is what makes it so nice to work with, because the colors will stay separate when you're creating a pattern or a design unless you purposefully mix the two together. I have given everybody, or most people, a roller like this acrylic roller. I will need these. I have given everybody a blade, of which I will want to get back as well. The blades are made so that they have like a notch in one edge, so you know that that's the side that doesn't have the blade part on it, but you can see that it has like a really sharp edge. You all have this container, and you have your plastic bag with your rubbing alcohol and a cloth to do this cleaning. You want to start with clean hands, especially if you're using a light color, because any dirt that you have on your hands will transfer to the clay. You also want to start with a clean surface, so you can see that I'm using like a piece of white here. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll use a plastic placemat, or if you have like a Formica kitchen top that you can clean down and use, that would be great. Piece of foil, piece of wax paper, any of those items will work. When you take your blade, what I want you to do with these blocks is I want you to cut them in half this way until you have 4 pieces. Now take each of these little blocks and cut them into 4 pieces. The practice techniques that we'll be working on, I'm trying to make the amounts that you use for them fairly small because you're going to just be putting them on such a small piece. But if you have like the frame and you want the whole background to be, say, a checkerboard pattern, you would use more clay to make more of the pattern that you need so that you could add it on there. I will be showing you 7 different polymer clay techniques. And the very first one, what I want you to do is take one of the reds, cut it in half again, and one of the blacks and cut it in half again. And then this is the very first technique. This one is blending colors. So you take the 2 pieces and you squeeze them and squish them until they are no longer being seen as separate colors. You will find that it's pretty soft, and it gets, with the warmth of your hands, it'll get very soft quickly, which is very nice as well. I'll take this piece, I'll flatten it with my finger, and then I can use the roller to roll it out. Now, depending upon what you're working on, you should be able to peel it off of the paper. Roll this piece out, pull it up. Notice it stretches too as you work, and place that onto the bottom of the jar. Now, you can take it and you can spread it out to the edge so it works right up against the very edge of the jar. And if you have any pieces that are sticking over, you can just take your knife and trim them off like that. And then I like to try to take this and just roll it nice and flat to get rid of my fingerprints. All right, so that's technique number 1, blending 2 colors. So you take your clay, soften it up again, and then you roll it, and as you're rolling it, I keep my fingers pretty stiff, and I roll, and as I roll, I pull my fingers apart and try to keep it as even as I possibly can. Sometimes you roll too far, it's going to crack them, separate, and just take that clay, roll it back up, and start the process over again. I'm going to keep it about the thickness of a piece of spaghetti, cooked spaghetti. Set that off to the side. Take one of the black pieces, squish it up. If you keep your piece and it's like this, that's essentially what they refer to as a log, and this is a snake. And then take those two pieces together and twist them like you would a candy cane. Now, I can do this two different ways. Most of the time what I do is I go different opposite directions with my hands, and then that makes it twist. But if I have like one area, say right here, that I want to twist more than the other, I'll gently apply some pressure to wherever I want the twist to stop, and then it will only twist beyond where I've stopped it from twisting. So I like to keep going and make this a nice twist, and then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll flatten it just a little bit, give it a little bit more of a smooth surface, and then oftentimes I'll just chop off my ends. And notice how I have like a weird little bump in the middle there. I'm going to try to make that so it's all even. Continue to twist this. So as you can see, if I use my fingers going out, I can make it longer, and you can continue to twist it like this to get more of a twist. I'm going to take that piece, and it will go around the top of my little jar or little vase. If I don't have enough clay for this particular project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out longer. Always try to plan to have more than you think you're going to need so that you don't run into that problem where you don't have enough. So I'm going to go all the way around. Now, when you're working on glass, a lot of people like to just try to stick a piece on the side of the glass and not actually attach it to another piece of clay. But in order for it to stay stuck to the glass, you really have to have clay touching that off. And now I'm just going to put those two together. And then I'm just going to gently press this into place. And that is my candy cane. Extra clay goes into the extra clay pile over here. Next one, take 2 pieces of clay again. If you're rolling your clay and it's crumbling a whole lot, it could be 2 reasons. One, it's older and it'll just require a little bit more warmth from you. Or 2, it's really messed up. So if you're having a problem with that, you just need to email me and I will talk to you about what to do. You can also order this online and get more if that's what you want. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is called marbling. And when you marble, if you use too much of the dark color as opposed to the lighter color, your marbling won't look very good. So I know this black is really, really dark. Now, if I were using 2 pastel colors, I would keep these 2 rolls the same size. I'm going to set the black off to this side because it's still good. It's not mixed together. I'm going to take these 2 pieces, squish them together, fold them in half, and roll. Then I'm going to fold in half again and roll. And then I'm going to fold in half again and roll. And I continue to do that process until I get what I think looks kind of cool of a kind of a blending. You blend too much and you're just going to mix the 2 colors together. Then you can take that piece, and if you don't have a roller, you can just use like a drinking glass to go ahead and smash it and make it flat. But you can take that piece and you can go that way, and you can see that it has a pretty neat pattern. That side, not so much as I like that side. It's kind of hard to tell. You can also roll side to side like this to kind of flatten it out more. Most of the time I try to keep my clay about the thickness of a stick of gum. If I go much thicker than that, it just wastes the clay and uses it up. If you go much thinner, it starts to crack. Okay, so take that piece, decide which one side you like, and decide where you're going to place it on your jar. Now, I don't want to leave it all uneven like that, so what I'm going to do is trim the end off here, and then trim, make a nice straight edge. One of the things you want to do when you're working is to just make sure that the blade is going straight up and down on there. And I'm just going to trim it off on the bottom right here. And put that extra clay off to the side. Always keep your extra clay because I'm going to show you a neat thing that you can do with it when you're done there. So we've done mixing 2 colors together, the candy cane and the marbling. Now stripes are pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. You take 2 different colors of clay. You're going to squish it up and roll it out till it's about the thickness of a stick of gum. So I like to try to start with my piece already in like a little rectangle shape, and then I roll it out. And it doesn't have to be very long. It can be kind of short because, again, this is just a practice piece. Can you see how your hands are starting to get a little bit of color on them? Make sure you do not use any utensils that you would use if you were cooking or cleaning. When you go to bake these in the oven, you're going to bake them on a cookie sheet, and you need to put a piece of foil on there before you use it. If you have any small birds in your house, you should make sure that you have the windows open and ventilated and the bird is not in the same room as where you're cooking the clay. Okay, so I've got my 2 pieces. They're a little bit different in size, but that's okay. And I'm going to stack them on top of one another, and then I'm going to cut the edges off straight. Sometimes when you're working on some of these projects, you get the clay so warm with your hands that what ends up happening when you try to do some of your slicing and cutting, you just smear the clay together. So you might have to leave it to set off to the side for a while before you work with it. So now you have a nice little rectangle. I'm going to cut that in half and take the 2 halves and stack them. And you can see as I stack them that I start to get some stripes. I would take this and cut pieces off and then use those little pieces. I like to wait until it's had a chance to set up a little bit. If you want to speed the process of setting up, you can take it and put it into the freezer, because see how I'm smushing that together and it's looking really bad right there where it's, because I'm trying to cut it when it's still too soft. And you can see then I just kind of squish that one out of shape as well, because I'm trying to cut it when it's too soft. So what I'm going to do is set this one off to the side before I slice it into pieces. I'm now going to show you how to create a checkerboard. So soften your clay, roll it into sheets, and you can use a little bit more here if you want to, like 1.5 of each block. Flatten them out so they're about the thickness of a stick of gum. Your goal with this is to keep it as even as you possibly can, thickness wise, so that your stripes end up looking really good. So I've rolled this out. I have my 2 pieces. I am going to take piece number 1 and cut off the edges. I take the piece that I cut and I lay it on top of the other one, and then that's where I can line up and make sure that I get the edges exactly the same, because that's kind of important for when you're doing stripes and or checkerboards, because you need to have each of the layers the same thing. You start the same way where you do the stripes and you stack. The millefiori is a technique. Milli means 1,000 and fiore means flower in Italian. To take one of the pieces and make a log, and the log needs to be about the thickness of a pencil and about 1 inch long. So take your extra pieces and cut them off and set them off to the side. All right, then you're going to want to have a piece that is like a medium color, a little bit more red and just a little bit of black. Mix that up until you get a color that is darker than the regular red, but still distinguishable from the black. So contrast is a big part working with polymer clay. If you don't have enough contrast, your design just doesn't look good. For this one, what you're going to do is you are going to roll out and make some snakes. You want them to be the same length as your log that you made for the center. So this is color number 2. And notice how I line up the centerpiece with my clay so that I can cut it and make sure that I'm cutting them all to the same length. So you're going to have that, and then you're going to have 4 pieces of the medium-ish color, and then take 1 more piece of red, roll it into a snake, turn this snake into a semi-triangular shape. So what I do is I pinch down all the way down the center of this piece. And what that does is it gives me my triangular shape. And you'll see why that's necessary when we get to the next. And you need 5 of these. I am making the sheet that goes all the way around this flower. I will roll it out a little bit thinner than I actually need it, but I need it to be as wide as the flower, the center thing that I'm going to make. So I roll, and it has to be as long as so it can wrap all the way around it.